All right, everybody, welcome back. We are diving deep into something pretty cool in MySQL 8.4 today.
Yeah. Histograms.
Histograms are very cool.
So for folks who might not know, like what those are, why they should care.
Right.
Okay, so imagine you're trying to find, I don't know, like a specific book in a giant library.
Okay, yeah.
Would you go through every single book, one by one?
Oh, no way.
No, you'd use the library's catalog, right?
Yeah, of course.
A histogram's kind of like that catalog for the database.
Yeah, okay.
It basically gives the optimizer a statistical summary of how the data is distributed.
Okay.
So instead of having to scan the entire table, the optimizer can estimate how many rows a query is going to return just by looking at the histogram.
Makes sense. So it helps the optimizer pick the fastest way to run the query.
Exactly. It saves a ton of time and resources. Yeah.
So then before 8.4,
Right.
it sounds like histograms were kind of a pain
They were a huge pain
to deal with.
Like, so if you think about that bookshelf analogy, imagine you have to constantly reorganize the bookshelf.
Right.
And you have to do it manually.
Okay.
Every time somebody adds a new book,
Oh, jeez.
every time somebody moves a book, you have to go in and be like, all right,
Yeah.
I got to reorganize this thing so that I know where everything is.
Right.
So before MySQL 8.4 DBAs would have to manually update histograms
Okay.
every time the data changed significantly. And you can imagine
That does sound like a pain.
if you have a large database that's constantly changing.
Right. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. Especially if it's something that's like mission critical.
Sure.
Can't really be down for very long.
You can't have downtime just because you're updating histograms.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So 8.4 then comes along and it's like, we gotcha.
8.4 comes in and says, we're going to make your life so much easier.
Right.
We're going to automate this process.
Okay.
So no more manual updating of histograms.
Cool.
MySQL 8.4 can automatically track changes in the data.
Oh, wow.
And update the histograms accordingly.
That's really cool.
And it does that by using triggers and background processes.
So it's just kind of like always keeping an eye on things.
It's constantly monitoring what's happening in the database,
That's cool.
making sure that those histograms are up to date.
Okay. So it sounds like no more manual reorganizing the giant library. We have this concept of
We have adaptive histograms.
adaptive histograms, which sounds...
Which are even cool, incredibly futuristic.
Yeah.
So what on earth are adaptive histograms?
So adaptive histograms are like histograms on steroids.
Okay.
They don't just track where the data is.
Okay.
They actually learn how you're using the data.
So it's like it's watching what you're doing.
It's like it's spying on you.
Right.
In a good way.
Wow.
It's like it's your helpful little librarian
Okay.
who's watching what books you're checking out.
Right.
And then it's reorganizing the library based on
Okay.
what you're most likely to want next.
That's wild.
So it analyzes your query patterns.
So it sees like, oh, this person keeps
This person keeps coming
putting
in
back.
and getting the same book over and over again.
Right.
I'm going to move that book closer to the front.
Okay.
So it sees what data is being accessed most frequently.
Okay.
And it actually adjusts the structure of the histogram
Interesting.
to prioritize those hotspots.
Okay.
So that the data that's being used the most is the easiest to access.
So it's like almost predicting the future in a way. Like you said, it's
It's like it has a crystal ball
Yeah.
and you can see what you're going to want next.
that's really cool. So to recap here,
Yeah.
MySQL 8.4 took histograms,
Took histograms,
which were a pain,
which were a nightmare.
and said, okay, we're going to make these automatic.
We're going to automate them. So this means that your queries are going to run faster,
Okay.
right? Because the database knows where to find the data.
Makes sense.
It can access it much more efficiently.
Awesome.
And the other thing that MySQL 8.4 did is it got a lot better at memory management. Yeah, this is like a bonus. So it can handle these larger histograms
Okay.
without using up all of your memory.
Gotcha. What were some of the, I guess, the limitations back then?
Well, the biggest problem with 8.0 was that managing histograms was pretty much all manual.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you literally had to tell the database to analyze the data and create or update the histograms.
Yikes.
And of course, someone had to remember to do that regularly.
Right.
And as you can imagine, with data constantly changing, it was super time consuming and, yeah, prone to errors.
I bet. Especially as the amount of data grows.
Yeah.
So it's 8.0, kind of clunky, lots of manual work.
Yeah.
8.4 comes along.
Yeah.
What's the big game changer here? What are we excited about?
Automatic and adaptive histograms.
Whoa, okay.
They're not just automatically created, they're constantly analyzing data and query patterns, updating themselves on the fly.
So no more manual updates.
Ah,
And they're like evolving, constantly learning.
exactly. It's a huge improvement.
So how does that work in practice? What does it mean that the updates are dynamic?
Okay, so in 8.0, even if you updated the histogram, it was basically a static snapshot of the data at that moment.
Right, frozen in time.
Exactly. But in 8.4, the histograms are dynamic. They adjust in real time as the data changes, as new query patterns emerge.
Wow, that's pretty quick.
It means the optimizer always has the most up-to-date info.
Right, so it can make, smarter decisions.
Much smarter, and that leads to much faster queries.
Okay, so we have this powerful, responsive histogram. But how does it actually get used? What's different about the way the optimizer integrates with it in 8.4?
It's all about using that real-time data to avoid bad query plans.
Okay.
For example, let's say you're searching for customers within a specific age range.
Right.
In 8.0, the optimizer might have been working with an old histogram,
Okay.
and it might have chosen like a slow index scan.
Yeah.
But in 8.4, with the dynamic histogram, it can accurately estimate the number of rows that match.
Right.
And it might choose a much faster index seek.
Gotcha.
And that's huge for performance, especially for complex queries.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, the docs also mentioned granular bucket control and memory optimization.
Oh, right.
Can you break those down for us?
Sure. So imagine a histogram as a set of buckets, each holding a range of values.
Okay.
The more buckets you have, the more accurate the histogram, but it also takes up more memory.
Makes sense.
8.4 gives you finer control over how many buckets you use.
Okay.
So you can optimize for your specific data and queries.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between, accuracy and efficiency.
Exactly.
Now, what about folks working with partition tables? What's in 8.4 for them?
Partition tables get a huge performance boost, especially for complex queries across multiple partitions. 8.4 keeps histograms for each partition.
I see.
So the optimizer can make smarter decisions about which partitions to even touch.
Wow. So it's even more efficient when you're dealing with those big partition tables.
Exactly.
Okay, so just to summarize, faster queries, less manual work, and a more efficient database overall.
It's amazing what they've done.
It's pretty remarkable how, something like a histogram can make such a big difference.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a fundamental part of how the database works.
Right. So this has been super informative, I think. I'm definitely excited to try out 8.4 now.
Me too.
But I'm curious, for our listeners out there, now that you've seen how much more efficient 8.4 can be with these new histograms, how do you think this might change the way you approach, database design and optimization in your own projects? It seems like there's a lot of potential here to, really push the limits.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for more complex and demanding applications.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. Well, thanks for breaking it all down for us. This has been a really great deep dive into MySQL 8.4 histograms.
My pleasure.
For everyone listening, definitely check out the full documentation, experiment with these new features, and see how much you can boost your own database performance. And until next time, keep on learning.
Keep on exploring.
We'll see you then.
See ya.
Bye.